Do you know these recipes? If so, you're probably over 50. These dishes were part of daily life once. So why do they feel forgotten now? Cheese balls were a must-have at any 1950s or 1960s party, instantly signaling a gathering of friends and family ready to enjoy themselves. These tasty creations combined creamy cream cheese with sharp cheddar, sometimes adding onions or spices, and then rolled the mixture in chopped nuts like pecans or walnuts for texture and flavor contrast. The final product was shaped into a perfect sphere, or even fun shapes like a football or Santa Claus during the holidays. Served with an assortment of crackers, cheese balls became a focal point on buffet tables and cocktail parties across America. They were simple to make, but delivered big on flavor, making them beloved by hosts and guests alike. What really made cheese balls stand out was how customizable they were. Some would include bits of bacon, others green peppers or olives mixed in. Despite their simplicity, they brought a sense of celebration and warmth to the table that many people today still fondly remember. Whether it was a church potluck, a holiday party, or a casual get-together, cheese balls had a way of bringing people together with their inviting taste and charming presentation. Pineapple upside-down cake was the kind of dessert that instantly brightened any mid-century dinner table with its golden, caramelized pineapple rings artfully arranged on top of a moist, buttery cake. This cake was flipped upside down after baking, revealing the glistening fruit and sticky glaze that made it irresistible to many families. Its sweet and tangy flavor made it a popular choice for Sunday dinners, birthday parties, and holiday celebrations alike. While the recipe was simple enough, with canned pineapple rings, brown sugar, and maraschino cherries often used, it held a special place in American kitchens from the 1940s through the 1970s. The dramatic presentation of the cake made it a showstopper, impressing guests without requiring complicated techniques. The warm, sweet aroma filling the kitchen during baking was enough to bring smiles and anticipation to anyone nearby. Many home cooks would serve it with a dollop of whipped cream or a scoop of vanilla ice cream to add an extra touch of indulgence. Pineapple upside-down cake perfectly captured the mid-century love of fruit-forward desserts and remains a nostalgic favorite for those who grew up during that era. Turkey tetrazini was a creamy, comforting casserole that became a beloved way to use leftover turkey, especially after holiday meals in the 1950s and beyond. The dish combined tender turkey chunks with egg noodles or spaghetti, mushrooms, and a rich white sauce made from cream or cheese, all baked until bubbly and golden on top. It was a clever way to stretch turkey into a filling dinner for the whole family, particularly during times when economical meals were valued. Many households treasured this recipe because it transformed leftover meat into something exciting and fresh, rather than boring. Adding a crunchy topping of breadcrumbs or Parmesan cheese elevated the texture, creating a pleasing contrast to the creamy interior. Turkey tetrazini was often served at potlucks and family gatherings, where its savory, cheesy goodness was always welcomed. The dish also reflected the post-war American fondness for casseroles, which combined convenience with hearty flavors. Though it may have fallen out of favor in recent decades, turkey tetrazini holds a warm place in the memories of those who grew up enjoying its rich, satisfying taste. Raisin bran muffins were a breakfast favorite that perfectly balanced nutrition and sweetness in mid-century America. Made with bran cereal packed with raisins, these muffins were a wholesome way to start the day, providing fiber and natural sugars all in one easy-to-eat treat. Many homemakers prized the recipe for its simplicity and the way it could be prepared quickly for busy mornings. Muffins like these were a common sight at school bake sales, church gatherings, and family brunches, reflecting the era's growing interest in healthier eating without sacrificing flavor. The slightly crunchy texture of the bran paired with the chewiness of the raisins made each bite satisfying and filling. Often enjoyed with a pat of butter or a drizzle of honey, raisin bran muffins offered comfort and energy to kids and adults alike. The popularity of these muffins also spoke to the wider cultural trend of incorporating cereal grains and dried fruits into everyday cooking. To this day, raisin bran muffins remain a nostalgic reminder of simpler breakfasts shared around family tables. Mock apple pie was a clever wartime creation that replaced scarce apples with Ritz crackers to mimic the classic pie flavor and texture during times of rationing. This ingenious recipe combined crushed crackers with sugar, cinnamon, and a touch of lemon juice or cream to create a filling that looked and tasted surprisingly close to real apple pie. For families facing shortages, mock apple pie was a welcome treat that preserved tradition without requiring precious fruit supplies. Its sweet, spiced filling nestled inside a flaky pie crust offered comfort and familiarity during uncertain times. Many home cooks passed down this recipe as a testament to creativity and resilience. The use of crackers not only stretched ingredients, but also added a subtle buttery crunch to the dessert. While it may seem unusual now, mock apple pie captured the spirit of making do with what was available and transforming it into something special. It was an affordable and delicious way to celebrate holidays and family meals when real apples were simply not an option. Baked macaroni and cheese with a Ritz cracker topping was a rich and creamy casserole that became a beloved classic during the mid-20th century. The dish combined tender pasta with a velvety cheese sauce, usually made with cheddar, then was topped generously with crushed Ritz crackers to add a delightful crunch and buttery flavor. This recipe was a staple in many American homes, especially because it combined simple pantry ingredients into a satisfying, kid-friendly meal. The crispy cracker crust provided a contrast to the soft, cheesy noodles underneath, making every bite an irresistible mix of textures. It was often served as a main dish or a hearty side during family dinners, potlucks, or holiday gatherings. For many, this dish evoked memories of comfort and warmth, offering a sense of home even during challenging times. The popularity of Ritz crackers in this recipe highlighted the mid-century penchant for convenience and flavor. Baked macaroni and cheese with a Ritz topping remains a nostalgic favorite among those who grew up enjoying its creamy, crunchy goodness. Ambrosia fluff salad was a no-bake dessert that captured the mid-century American love for light, sweet, and easy-to-prepare treats. It combined whipped cream or whipped topping with marshmallows, coconut flakes, and canned fruit cocktail, creating a fluffy, colorful concoction served chilled. This salad was a common fixture at potlucks, church socials, and holiday dinners, where its sweet and tropical flavors offered a refreshing contrast to heavier dishes. The marshmallows provided a soft chewiness, while the coconut added a pleasant texture and subtle nuttiness. Ambrosia salad was especially popular during the warmer months, as it was cool, sweet, and required no oven time. Families appreciated how simple it was to make, often preparing it in advance and bringing it to gatherings as a crowd pleaser. The dessert represented the era's enthusiasm for convenience foods, combined with traditional homemade goodness. Even today, Ambrosia fluff salad brings a smile to those who remember its light sweetness and festive appearance. Chiffon salad was a light, gelatin-based dessert salad that blended fluffy whipped gelatin with fresh or canned fruit, creating a sweet and airy treat popular in the mid-1900s. Unlike heavier gelatin dishes, chiffon salad emphasized a delicate texture, with the gelatin whipped to incorporate air and often layered with fruit chunks or nuts. This salad was frequently served in clear glass dishes, showcasing its colorful layers and making it a visual delight at dinner parties and family meals. It was a popular way to incorporate fruit into desserts while keeping the calorie count low, appealing to homemakers looking for elegant yet simple options. The airy quality of the chiffon made it a refreshing choice after hearty main courses, and its sweet, subtle flavors pleased a wide range of palates. Its popularity extended through the 1950s to 1970s, reflecting the era's fascination with gelatin-based dishes and creative presentations. Chiffon salad remains a charming reminder of mid-century dessert traditions and creative home cooking. Swedish rye crisp bread was a staple in Scandinavian American households, offering a crunchy and wholesome alternative to soft breads during the mid-20th century. These thin, crisp crackers were often served with butter, cheese, or smoked fish, making them a versatile base for snacks and light meals. The crisp bread's dense rye flavor provided a satisfying earthiness that complemented creamy or savory toppings perfectly. Many immigrant families kept this tradition alive, passing down recipes and enjoying it as a link to their cultural roots. The convenience and shelf stability of rye crisp bread made it popular during times when fresh bread might not be readily available or affordable. Scandinavian communities especially prized this cracker for its health benefits and satisfying texture. It was common to find Swedish rye crisp bread at breakfast tables, or as part of a simple lunch, paired with cold cuts or pickled vegetables. Today, it stands as a tasty and nostalgic symbol of heritage and simple pleasures for many Americans. Stuffed bell peppers were a beloved comfort food that combined vibrant green or red peppers with a hearty mixture of rice, ground meat, onions, and tomato sauce, baked until tender and flavorful. This dish was popular in American homes from the 1940s through the 1970s, especially in families with Eastern European roots. Stuffed peppers offered an easy way to stretch inexpensive ingredients into a filling meal, making them especially valued during times when budgets were tight. The peppers softened in the oven, melding with the savory filling and tangy tomato sauce to create a satisfying harmony of flavors. Many variations existed, with some families adding cheese on top or including different spices based on regional preferences. Stuffed bell peppers often appeared on weeknight dinners and holiday tables alike, appreciated for their colorful presentation and nourishing qualities. They represented a practical yet delicious way to incorporate vegetables and protein in one dish. Today, stuffed peppers remain a nostalgic favorite for those who remember their wholesome, home-cooked charm. Peach melba was a dessert that graced many American tables during the mid-20th century, delighting families with its elegant simplicity and sweet freshness. This treat featured soft, poached peaches gently bathed in a bright raspberry sauce, creating a beautiful balance of fruity flavors that felt like a special occasion even on an ordinary day. A scoop of vanilla ice cream often accompanied the dish, adding a creamy contrast that made every bite smooth and indulgent. The dessert was named after the famous opera singer Nellie Melba and carried a certain sophistication that appealed to home cooks who wanted to impress without spending hours in the kitchen. Peach melba was especially popular in the warmer months when fresh fruit was abundant, offering a refreshing and light finale to dinners. Its colorful presentation made it a favorite at dinner parties and family gatherings, and the ease of preparation made it accessible to many. Though less common now, peach melba holds a cherished place in culinary history as a symbol of mid-century American elegance and comfort. Velveeta cheese dip was a party favorite that captured the mid-century American love for creamy, cheesy goodness served with a side of convenience. This dip featured processed Velveeta cheese melted down into a smooth, velvety sauce that paired perfectly with crackers, chips, or raw vegetables. It was a staple at cocktail parties, game nights, and casual get-togethers, offering a warm, savory bite that pleased guests of all ages. The ease of preparation, just melt and stir, made it especially appealing for busy hosts who wanted a crowd-pleasing appetizer without fuss. Sometimes, additions like diced tomatoes, chili peppers, or cooked ground beef were mixed in to add texture and flavor variety. Velveeta cheese dip reflected the post-war fascination with processed foods and convenience cooking, becoming a cultural icon of American entertaining. Despite its simplicity, the dip delivered a rich, comforting flavor that became synonymous with good times and communal eating. Today, it remains a nostalgic nod to a period when cheese and ease were a perfect pair. Chicken and dumplings was a beloved comfort food in many American homes, offering warmth and nourishment through stewed chicken and soft dough dumplings cooked to tender perfection. This hearty dish was often made with leftover chicken, simmered in a flavorful broth alongside vegetables like carrots, celery, and onions. The dumplings, made from simple flour, baking powder, and milk, were dropped into the simmering pot, where they puffed up and soaked in the rich flavors around them. Chicken and dumplings were particularly popular in rural and southern households, but found a place in kitchens across the country. The dish's soothing nature and filling ingredients made it ideal for cold weather or times when families sought hearty meals with modest ingredients. Each bite offered a combination of tender meat and fluffy dumplings, making it both satisfying and easy to enjoy. The recipe's flexibility meant that cooks could adapt it with whatever they had on hand, cementing its reputation as a timeless classic. Chicken and dumplings remain a cherished symbol of home cooking and family gatherings. Waldorf sandwiches took the classic Waldorf salad and transformed it into a sophisticated, open-faced sandwich, making it a popular luncheon option in mid-20th century America. The sandwiches featured crisp apples, crunchy celery, and toasted walnuts mixed with a creamy mayonnaise dressing, all piled generously on slices of rye or pumpernickel bread. The contrast between the crisp, fresh salad and the hearty bread created a delightful texture and flavor combination that was both light and satisfying. Often garnished with grapes or a sprinkle of paprika, Waldorf sandwiches brought a touch of elegance to casual meals and were a common sight at tea parties, church luncheons, and family gatherings. This dish represented the era's love for salads and sandwiches that could be prepared quickly yet presented beautifully. Waldorf sandwiches allowed homemakers to serve something that felt upscale without requiring complicated cooking skills or expensive ingredients. They remain a nostalgic reminder of classic American lunch fare that balanced taste, texture, and visual appeal perfectly. Vegetable soup with barley was a nutritious, hearty staple that found its way onto many mid-century American dinner tables, especially in households valuing comfort and simplicity. This soup combined fresh or canned vegetables like carrots, celery, and peas with tender barley grains simmered in a savory broth, resulting in a warm, filling meal that could stretch to feed a family on a budget. Barley added a chewy texture and nutty flavor that made the soup more substantial and satisfying than a basic broth-based vegetable soup. It was often served as a starter or a light main dish during cooler months when a hot meal was most welcome. The recipe's adaptability allowed cooks to include whatever vegetables were in season or available, making it a flexible option year-round. Vegetable soup with barley reflected the era's emphasis on wholesome, home-cooked meals that provided both comfort and nourishment. Its enduring popularity is a testament to the way simple ingredients can create enduring, flavorful dishes. Beef tongue with mustard sauce was a classic entree appreciated by many American households in the mid-20th century, often served as a special cold cut or a warm dinner option. This dish featured tender, slow-cooked beef tongue, sliced thin, and accompanied by a tangy mustard sauce that cut through the rich, mild flavor of the meat. While beef tongue might seem unusual today, it was prized for its economical use of the whole animal and its surprisingly delicate texture when prepared correctly. The dish often appeared on holiday tables or at formal dinners, reflecting a tradition of resourcefulness combined with culinary flair. Mustard sauce was typically made with prepared mustard, vinegar, and sometimes cream or butter, creating a sharp contrast that complemented the meat perfectly. For those who grew up with it, beef tongue with mustard sauce evoked memories of family gatherings and sophisticated meals that showcased both thrift and taste. It remains a fascinating glimpse into a culinary past where no part of the animal went to waste. Frozen fruit salad was a unique dessert that gained popularity in mid-century America, especially during the warmer months when its refreshing qualities were most appreciated. This treat combined a mix of canned or fresh fruits, such as pineapple, cherries, and grapes, with marshmallows and nuts, all bound together with a creamy dressing often made from mayonnaise or whipped topping. Once mixed, the salad was frozen until firm, creating a cool, textured dessert that combined sweetness with a satisfying crunch. Frozen fruit salad was a favorite at picnics, potlucks, and holiday gatherings, where it served as both a palate cleanser and a fun, festive dish. Its bright colors and varied textures made it visually appealing, while the cold temperature offered relief from summer heat. This dessert showcased mid-century inventiveness in using canned and frozen ingredients to create something both convenient and delicious. For many, frozen fruit salad remains a nostalgic symbol of family celebrations and communal meals shared around the table. Carrot cake with cream cheese frosting rose to popularity during the 1960s as a moist, flavorful dessert that balanced sweetness with a hint of spice and the tang of rich frosting. This cake featured shredded carrots mixed into a batter seasoned with cinnamon and nutmeg, adding both texture and warmth to each bite. The cream cheese frosting, smooth and slightly tart, complemented the cake's spices perfectly, creating a harmonious combination loved by many. Carrot cake became a go-to choice for birthdays, potlucks, and special occasions, appealing to those who wanted something a little different from traditional chocolate or vanilla cakes. Its use of vegetables added an element of nutrition, which made it seem both indulgent and wholesome. Over the years, carrot cake has become synonymous with comfort and nostalgia, reminding many of the home kitchens and community gatherings of the past. Even today, it holds a cherished spot in American dessert culture, a testament to its enduring appeal. Slaw dogs were a regional favorite that combined the convenience of hot dogs with the tangy crunch of coleslaw, creating a unique and satisfying street food experience. Popular in parts of the American South and Midwest during the mid-20th century, these sandwiches featured grilled or steamed hot dogs nestled in soft buns topped generously with creamy, vinegar-based coleslaw. The cool slaw provided a refreshing contrast to the warm, savory sausage, making each bite flavorful and texturally interesting. Slaw dogs were often sold at fairs, sporting events, and casual eateries, becoming a beloved part of local food traditions. They reflected the inventive spirit of American food culture, where simple ingredients were combined in novel ways to delight the palate. This dish also spoke to the social side of eating, as slaw dogs were often enjoyed outdoors with friends and family. For those who grew up with them, slaw dogs evoke memories of summers, gatherings, and the joy of casual, flavorful meals. Tomato and cucumber salad with dill was a simple yet refreshing dish that found a steady place in American kitchens, especially during the summer months when fresh produce was at its peak. This salad combined juicy, ripe tomatoes with crisp cucumbers, all tossed in a light dressing often made from vinegar or sour cream and generously seasoned with fresh dill. The combination of the cool vegetables and the aromatic herb created a bright, tangy flavor profile that was both satisfying and easy to prepare. It was a common accompaniment to grilled meats, picnic lunches, and family dinners, offering a healthy and colorful side dish. The use of dill, a popular herb in many mid-century recipes, gave the salad a distinctive touch that set it apart from more basic vegetable salads. Tomato and cucumber salad with dill was celebrated for its simplicity, freshness, and ability to complement a wide range of meals, making it a timeless favorite among those who remember it from home cooking days. Cold salmon loaf was a popular dish in mid-century America that brought together the rich flavors of salmon with creamy binders like mayonnaise and eggs to create a smooth, chilled pâté. Typically molded into a neat shape using a loaf pan or ring mold, it was then chilled until firm and sliced for serving. This salmon loaf was often accompanied by crisp crackers, crusty bread, or fresh vegetables, making it a staple at luncheons and family gatherings. The dish was admired for its combination of elegance and ease, offering a sophisticated way to enjoy seafood without complicated preparation. Salmon loaf recipes sometimes included additional ingredients like chopped onions, herbs, or even gelatin to enhance texture and flavor. Its chilled nature made it particularly refreshing during warmer months and a festive addition to potluck tables. The molded presentation was visually appealing, reflecting the era's love of decorative, structured dishes. For many, cold salmon loaf remains a nostalgic reminder of classic American entertaining and home cooking traditions. Ambrosia pie was a creamy, sweet dessert that took the beloved ambrosia fruit salad and turned it into a luscious pie, beloved in American kitchens from the 1950s to 1970s. This pie combined the fluffiness of whipped cream with the tropical flavors of canned pineapple, mandarin oranges, shredded coconut, and mini marshmallows, all nestled in a buttery graham cracker crust. Its light yet indulgent texture made it a crowd pleaser at holiday dinners and summer picnics alike. The pie captured the mid-century American fascination with no-bake desserts that were easy to prepare and visually inviting. Ambrosia pie was often garnished with extra fruit or nuts for added texture and color. It was especially popular because it could be made ahead of time and chilled, allowing flavors to meld beautifully. This dessert remains a nostalgic favorite for many, symbolizing the fun and fruity indulgences of a bygone culinary era. Parker House rolls were the quintessential soft and buttery dinner rolls that graced tables across mid-20th century America. named after the famous Parker House Hotel in Boston. These rolls were known for their pillowy texture, slightly sweet flavor, and flaky golden crust, often brushed with butter right after baking to enhance their rich taste and shine. Many families served these rolls during holiday feasts, Sunday dinners, and special occasions, making them a cherished staple of home cooking. The roll's signature fold and slight crunch on the outside created a delightful contrast to the soft interior. Their ease of preparation and reliable results made Parker House rolls a favorite among home bakers seeking to add a touch of elegance to everyday meals. Even today, they remain a symbol of classic American baking and evoke memories of comforting family dinners and holiday celebrations. Sweet potato pie was a beloved Southern dessert that blended the natural sweetness of mashed sweet potatoes with warm spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves, all baked in a flaky pie crust. This dessert was a common fixture at holiday tables, church socials, and family gatherings, especially throughout the American South. Its creamy texture and warmly spiced flavor made it a comforting treat, often enjoyed alongside pecan pie or pumpkin pie. Sweet potato pie was admired for its humble ingredients and its ability to bring warmth and sweetness to the table without needing elaborate preparation. Many recipes included eggs, sugar, and milk or cream to create a custard-like filling that baked to a golden finish. The pie's rich color and inviting aroma evoked feelings of home and tradition, making it a dessert that connected generations through shared tastes and memories. Sweet potato pie remains a nostalgic favorite, representing Southern hospitality and culinary heritage. Scalloped corn was a creamy baked side dish that combined tender corn kernels with a rich sauce, often made from milk, butter, and flour, and was topped with crispy breadcrumbs or cheese for added texture. This dish was a favorite accompaniment at family dinners, potlucks, and holiday feasts throughout mid-century America. The natural sweetness of the corn blended with the creamy sauce to create a comforting and indulgent side that paired well with roasted meats and poultry. Scalloped corn was especially popular because it could be prepared ahead of time and baked just before serving, making it a convenient choice for busy homemakers. Some variations included bits of onion or bell pepper to add depth of flavor, while others incorporated a crunchy cracker topping. This dish represented the era's love of casseroles that combined simplicity with satisfying richness. Even today, scalloped corn conjures memories of warm kitchens and festive family meals. Pickled beets were a tangy and sweet side dish that became a common addition to American dinner plates, especially during the mid-20th century when pickling was a popular preservation method. These deep red, tender slices of beetroot were soaked in a vinegar-based brine often sweetened with sugar and spiced with cloves or cinnamon. Pickled beets offered a vibrant contrast to richer, heavier main dishes, adding both color and brightness to the meal. They were frequently served alongside meats, in salads, or as part of cold appetizer platters. The ease of making pickled beets at home, combined with their long shelf life, made them a pantry staple in many households. Their distinctive flavor was loved by many and was seen as a sign of thoughtful home cooking. Pickled beets continue to hold a nostalgic place in the hearts of those who remember them as a tangy, sweet complement to a variety of meals. Cheese souffle was a classic dish that brought lightness and elegance to formal dinners in mid-century America, admired for its airy texture and rich, cheesy flavor. This baked egg dish combined whipped egg whites with a savory cheese mixture, often cheddar or Swiss, to create a puffed, golden masterpiece that was as much a visual delight as it was a taste sensation. Cheese souffle required precise technique, making it a showpiece recipe that many home cooks aspired to master. It was often served as a starter or a side dish during holiday meals and dinner parties, impressing guests with its delicate rise and creamy interior. Though challenging, soufflés were a symbol of culinary skill and refinement, showcasing the era's appreciation for French-inspired cooking. The dish balanced lightness with bold flavor, making it a favorite for special occasions. Today, cheese souffle remains a nostalgic reminder of a time when elegant home cooking reigned supreme. Chocolate mayonnaise cake was a surprising and moist dessert that became a mid-20th century favorite for those seeking rich flavor without the fuss of butter or eggs. This cake used mayonnaise as a secret ingredient, adding moisture and a velvety texture that set it apart from traditional chocolate cakes. The tangy richness of the mayonnaise combined perfectly with cocoa powder and sugar, creating a deeply chocolatey flavor that delighted both casual bakers and experienced cooks. This cake gained popularity during times when ingredients were limited or rationed, offering an ingenious way to make a decadent dessert from pantry staples. Chocolate mayonnaise cake was easy to prepare and yielded consistent results, making it a trusted recipe in many households. Its unique ingredient list sparked curiosity and surprise, but never disappointment. For those who grew up enjoying this cake, it brings back warm memories of family celebrations and shared slices of sweet innovation. Brunswick stew was a thick, hearty tomato-based stew that originated in the American South and became a cherished comfort food in the mid-20th century. Packed with a mix of meats like chicken, pork, or beef, along with vegetables such as lima beans, corn, and potatoes, it was slow-cooked to develop deep, savory flavors. This stew was often prepared in large quantities for family gatherings, community events, or cookouts, embodying the spirit of Southern hospitality and communal eating. The rich tomato base provided a tangy backdrop that melded all the ingredients into a satisfying, filling meal. Brunswick stew recipes varied by region and family tradition, with some versions incorporating barbecue sauce or hot peppers for extra kick. Its ability to feed a crowd economically made it a popular choice during times when stretching ingredients was necessary. Even today, Brunswick stew remains a symbol of Southern comfort and home-cooked goodness, evoking memories of cozy kitchens and shared meals. Bread and butter pickles were a sweet and tangy treat that became a staple condiment in many mid-century American homes, offering a delightful crunch and bright flavor to sandwiches and burgers. These pickles were made by slicing cucumbers thinly and soaking them in a vinegar-based brine flavored with sugar, mustard seeds, and turmeric, resulting in a vibrant yellow hue and a perfectly balanced taste. The combination of sweet and sour made bread and butter pickles a versatile accompaniment, enhancing everything from cold cuts to barbecue plates. Their long shelf life and ease of preparation made them popular for home canning and preserving, ensuring that this tangy delight was available year-round. Many families passed down recipes, tweaking the sweetness or spice levels to suit their tastes. Bread and butter pickles remain a nostalgic reminder of homemade condiments that added a burst of flavor and freshness to classic American meals. Jelly omelets were the kind of oddball depression dish that worked better than expected. Eggs were easier to get than meat, especially if you had chickens, but they still had to stretch. So when there was no bacon or sausage, people got creative. They spread jam or jelly inside a folded omelet and served it like breakfast dessert. Grape, apple, strawberry, whatever you had, often homemade and preserved. It was sweet, soft, and oddly satisfying. The egg and sugar made something that felt like a treat, even if it was born of necessity. For children, it was special. For adults, it was just another way to avoid waste. You could swap in stewed fruit or mashed banana if jelly was gone. It was quick, flexible, and checked every box for a depression meal. It might seem strange today, but it made sense back then. When food was limited, taste mattered more than rules. I think one of the worst money drainers of our generation is the lack of public transport. If it's not thousands of dollars spent back and forth on Uber, it's a lot of money and interest payments on leases for a car. Seriously, public transportation is amazing and is one of the best things about the modern world. You can get through an entire state in what? A few dollars? I mean, just look at how Japan does it. They have nothing but public transport, and they seem a lot happier. If you find yourself commuting often, then maybe you might want to look into more affordable ways of doing that. Skillet roasting coffee beans at home was an act of love and patience. Before electric roasters and fancy blends, families would buy green coffee beans in bulk and roast them right in their kitchens. A heavy cast iron skillet was all you needed. You kept the beans moving constantly to prevent burning, usually shaking the pan or stirring with a long spoon over medium heat. The smell was smoky, earthy, and almost intoxicating. You had to listen closely for the first crack, that sharp popping sound that told you the roast was beginning. Some people liked a lighter roast, others waited for a darker color and fuller aroma. Once cooled, sometimes wrapped in a damp towel, they were ground by hand or in a manual grinder and brewed fresh. It was a whole process, but it made your morning cup feel earned. Today's coffee comes pre-roasted, pre-ground, and sealed in plastic. But back then, roasting your own beans was a skill that saved money, deepened flavor, and filled the house with the kind of smell that told you the day was starting right. Cleaning cast iron used to be a lesson passed from one generation to the next, and salt was the teacher. No soap, no scouring pads, just coarse salt and a towel. You poured salt into the warm pan and used it like a scrubber, rubbing away the cooked-on bits without removing the seasoning. It left the skillet smooth, clean, and ready for tomorrow's meal. This method kept the pan's hard-earned coating intact, something that took weeks or months to build. Every cook had their own cast iron rules, but salt was nearly universal. It worked, it was cheap, and it was better than anything sold in stores. Today, entire aisles are filled with specialty cleaning products, but this trick came from a time when kitchens relied on know-how, not chemicals. Supermarkets would rather sell you a $10 bottle than remind you that a handful of salt will do the same job. But this was cooking rooted in care, preserving your tools the same way you preserved your food. And that skillet, it just kept getting better with age. You could smell the vinegar before you even saw it. Tomato aspic ring with cottage cheese center was one of those gelatin recipes that made you pause and squint. Made with tomato juice, lemon, a touch of spice, and unflavored gelatin, it set into a firm, glossy mold that looked more like art than food. Right in the center, a cold scoop of cottage cheese sat like a prize. It was chilled, sliced, and served with parsley or maybe a sprig of celery leaf if you were fancy. This dish was all about appearances. It looked organized, clean, respectable, and people loved it. Not because it was delicious necessarily, but because it was reliable. It held its shape. It stood tall on the plate, and it came straight from the Betty Crocker playbook of mid-century hospitality. Some people added olives or celery bits. Others swore by a dash of Worcestershire sauce. Either way, it was a staple at luncheons and ladies' club meetings, a showpiece more than a craving. It might not be your favorite dish now, but back then, it meant you had taste, or at least a good mold. Cabbage water broth might not sound like much, but in the 1930s, it was enough to keep people going. Boiling cabbage was already a regular routine, but families quickly learned to never pour the water down the drain. That cloudy, sulfur-scented liquid held nutrients, starch, and just enough flavor to turn into a soup base. Some would throw in a diced potato, a handful of onion skins, or a bit of old bread to thicken it. Others might add salt, if they had any, and call it a night. There was a kind of pride in making something from what others saw as nothing. It might not have tasted like much, but it was hot, filling, and warm on cold days when spirits were thin. In some houses, that broth became the start of a stew that would stretch out over days. You reused everything back then, especially the things no one thought to save. Even the cabbage leaves, once cooked soft and pale, might be mashed and eaten with a splash of vinegar. But the broth was the heart of it. It told a story of making do with what you had, even if it was only boiled water and scraps. It was soup born of hardship and resilience. What people would do instead of always needing to spend money on their downtime was to instead go out to public parks, take a stroll, bathe in some sunlight, feed a dumb bird or two, probably the one that keeps mistaking your rooftop for a bathroom. Hey, they're all a part of God's choir, aren't they? Taking some time to reconnect with nature in parks was not only really good for your money, it was also really good for your mind. Don't believe me? Just look at any number of mental health professionals and the various arguments, studies, and researches they've put up that proves that going outside and touching grass actually does work. Bread-soaked meatballs were a small act of genius hiding in plain sight. When you did not have enough breadcrumbs, or when the bread itself was too stale to eat, you soaked it in milk until it turned soft and fluffy. Then you mixed it into ground meat, herbs, and maybe an egg if you had one. The result? A tender, juicy meatball that held its shape without drying out. This trick also stretched your meat further, letting 1 pound do the work of 2. It came from Italian kitchens, but American homes embraced it fast. Sunday dinners, church potlucks, and penny-pinching mothers all used it. And it was not just for meatballs. You would see the same method in meatloaf and stuffed peppers too. The soaked bread kept things moist without adding weight. Modern recipes may call for panko or fancy crumbs, but this old trick still beats them all when it comes to comfort and thrift. Long before milk was processed, standardized, and stripped of its quirks, it had layers. And if you left it untouched overnight in a glass bottle, the cream would rise to the top. That thick, velvety layer was gold. You could skim it off with a spoon and use it to make butter, whipped toppings, or richer baked goods. The milk below was thinner, yes, but still perfectly fine for drinking or cooking. This trick was part of everyday kitchen life before homogenized milk flattened everything into one uniform texture. People knew how to work with it, how to read its signs, and how to get the most from it. No one waited for a product to be cream-enriched or extra thick. They just used what was already there. Grocery stores moved away from this version of milk on purpose. Less separation means more consistency, longer shelf life, and fewer complaints. But it also meant the end of something more personal, more connected. A quiet act like skimming cream gave families that tiny moment of luxury at home. And we gave it up without realizing what we lost. Golden Glow salad was as cheerful as it sounds. A molded salad made from orange or lemon gelatin, finely shredded carrots, and crushed pineapple. It was Betty's answer to healthy eating that still jiggled. It showed up on dinner plates and potluck tables, sitting tall in ring molds or scooped onto a leaf of iceberg lettuce. This was not dessert. It was salad. The carrots gave it crunch. The pineapple gave it sweetness. And the gelatin made it behave. You could make it a day ahead and forget about it until dinner time. Some people topped it with a spoonful of mayonnaise. Others left it plain with just a sprinkle of chopped nuts. It was light, refreshing, and surprisingly popular during the 1960s and 1970s when people wanted to feel like they were eating better, even if it was still wrapped in Jell-O. It was not trying to impress. It was just trying to brighten your plate. And for a lot of people, it did. Old-fashioned corn pudding was sweet, soft, and surprisingly hearty, especially for something that came from such humble beginnings. In the 1930s, cornmeal was dirt cheap and endlessly useful, and this dish was one of the cleverest ways to turn it into a filling side, a bit of cornmeal, water or milk, and just enough sugar to make it feel special. Eggs were sometimes added, but often it was just flour, grease, and corn. It came out like a custard or a thick bread pudding, depending on what you had. Baked slowly, it developed a crust on top and a warm, spoonable inside that made it a family favorite. People would eat it hot out of the oven or cold the next morning, sometimes drizzled with molasses or a pat of margarine. It was both side dish and dessert, depending on your mood. There were no store-bought sweets for most folks back then, so corn pudding gave just enough sugar and softness to count as a treat. And for children, it was a rare bite of comfort in a world where food often felt like medicine. It was poor man's pudding, but it tasted like something richer. Once again, I really will recommend cutting down on those IKEA trips. As tempting as it is to get a brand new oak table or a mahogany drawer, you don't need it. Furnish your home with some secondhand furniture, and you'll not only be saving money, but you'll also be giving your home a much-needed makeover without breaking the bank. A lot of the used furniture that's up for sale isn't even in poor shape, and if you know your way around refurbishing something or adding a bit of life back into it, then you'll know it's not that hard. Just a bit of work with a wet cloth and some polish can do wonders for any used furniture, and it's like half the price you get at IKEA. Boiled apple core pectin for jams was a brilliant example of how nothing went to waste, not even the parts most of us toss. When you peeled apples for pies, sauces, or snacks, you saved the cores and skins in a pot. Add water, bring it to a boil, and simmer it down until it became thick and sticky. That cloudy, pale liquid was pure pectin, the natural thickener that made your jams and jellies set without extra sugar or gelatin. You strained it through a cloth and saved it in jars, ready to add to the next batch of strawberry preserves or grape jelly. This trick gave structure to homemade spreads and let families stretch their fruit harvest further. It also meant that one bag of apples could serve 3 or 4 purposes, not just one. Store-bought pectin became popular later, but for many years, this was the only kind you had. The trick worked best with tart apples, especially those a little underripe. It is barely mentioned now, but it was once as essential as sugar itself in rural kitchens. Before bacon strips came wrapped in plastic, there was salt pork, hearty, fatty, and packed with flavor. This was the starting point for stews, beans, and slow-cooked greens. You cut off a chunk, diced it small, and rendered it in the bottom of your pot until the fat melted and the bits turned crisp. That salty fat was liquid gold. It coated vegetables and gave every dish a depth that broth alone could not provide. Salt pork kept well without refrigeration, making it a pantry staple in both urban tenements and rural cabins. You might not eat a lot of it at once, but just a spoonful flavored a whole meal. And because it was tougher and less prized than bacon, it was cheaper too. Supermarkets phased it out in favor of neatly packaged bacon slices, but for decades, this was the backbone of American cooking. It was not glamorous, but it was reliable, and it made humble food taste big. Today, most people do not even know what it is. But ask anyone who grew up before the 1950s, and they will tell you, salt pork meant supper was on its way. No apples? No problem. Betty Crocker had a solution that blew minds and confused taste buds. Mock apple pie was made with Ritz crackers, sugar, cinnamon, and lemon juice, but no fruit at all. It mimicked the texture and flavor of apple pie so well that most people had no idea what they were eating until you told them. The crackers stood in for apple slices. The syrupy mixture made everything gooey and sweet, and the pie crust held it all together like it had something to prove. People who grew up with it often remembered it as one of the most surprising dishes their mothers or grandmothers ever made. This dish came from lean times, first during the Depression, then again during World War II. But Betty revived it in later editions to teach frugality with flair. It was especially popular during rationing when apples were expensive or out of season and pantry staples had to carry the load. Some people swore it tasted just like the real thing. Others thought it was weird in the best way. Either way, it got people talking. That was part of the charm. And maybe that is why it stayed in print for so long. A trick pie that fooled you into tasting comfort. Wilted lettuce salad was not just about saving soggy greens. It was about making the most of what the garden gave, even past its prime. When lettuce started to wilt in the heat or after a few days indoors, families did not toss it. Instead, they poured hot bacon grease mixed with vinegar over the top, reviving the leaves into something tender and flavorful. The heat wilted the lettuce just enough, and the vinegar gave it a punch of brightness. Bits of onion or crumbled bacon were added when possible, but the core of the dish was that sizzling pour. It turned tired lettuce into a warm salad with more depth than any cold dressing could offer. You did not need much to make it feel special. It was a moment when something old felt new again. In a time of extreme frugality, it captured the mindset perfectly. Do not throw it out. Just use it differently. Wilted lettuce was not a fallback. It was a quiet trick that helped people feel like they still had a choice at the table. You know, people during the Depression were really cost-effective with their usage of leftover stale bread. To them, bread wasn't something you would ever throw out. The rest of the stuff? The sharing meals, patching clothes, cutting down on meat, all of that was fine, but bread was never something you wasted. People would use it for breadcrumbs, bread pudding, croutons. They'd use it so they had something to dip into their soups and stews. Everybody did the best they could to ensure not a single loaf of bread was wasted, and that meant they were spending a lot less than we do on bread overall. People would even get to making their own bread at home instead of constantly buying new packets. They would also use rye bread or brown bread instead of white bread wherever they could. This is something I think we can bring back, especially since they tend to be better for you anyway. Homemade rennet for cheese making was not for the faint of heart, but it got the job done. Before tablets and store-bought cultures, people used what they had, often vinegar, lemon juice, or for the brave ones, a bit of calf stomach lining. The process was part science, part tradition. You warmed milk gently, stirred in the curdling agent, and waited for the magic to happen. Once it separated into curds and whey, you strained it through cloth and pressed it into soft rounds or blocks. Some added salt or herbs, others kept it plain. The taste was fresh, a little tangy, and deeply rewarding. It was not just about saving money, it was about knowing how to make food from the ground up. Today's cookbooks mostly skip this, expecting readers to start with pre-made cheese or kits. But the old method taught patience and respect for the process. Cheese was no longer something you bought, it was something you made. Back before you could buy gravy in a packet or roux in a jar, you had to make it from scratch. That meant browning your own flour. You would pour it into a dry skillet and stir it over medium heat until it turned golden brown, releasing a nutty aroma that meant flavor was on its way. It took time and a bit of practice not to burn it, but the payoff was real. Once cooled, it could be stored in a jar and used to thicken stews, gravies, or creamy casseroles on the fly. This little bit of prep ahead of time made everyday cooking quicker, especially when you had hungry mouths and only 30 minutes to get dinner on the table. Browning flour added richness to even the simplest dishes. No meat? No problem. With a few vegetables and some browned flour, you could still get something satisfying. It is the kind of trick that gives a plain pot of food that slow-cooked flavor without hours of work. But it has faded from our kitchens, probably because supermarkets do not sell it pre-browned. Funny how that works, right? This one was for when you were short on time but still wanted something hot and happy. Cheese-stuffed wieners were just hot dogs split down the center, filled with American cheese and relish, and broiled until bubbly. The edges curled, the cheese melted, and the smell was unmistakable. Kids begged for these. Adults did not mind them either. You could make a whole tray in 10 minutes and serve it with buttered toast or tater tots. Some people added mustard before broiling. Others waited until the plate. The best part? It cost next to nothing. A pack of hot dogs, a few cheese slices, and a little relish went a long way. It was in Betty Crocker's section for fast meals and after-school snacks, but it showed up at dinner tables more often than you would think. It was warm, it was cheesy, and it made you feel like you had done something clever with what you had. There were fancier dishes, sure, but this one always disappeared first. Rendered bacon grease was one of those things every household in the 1930s held on to like it was gold. When you could not afford fresh butter or oil, the fat left over from breakfast bacon became your miracle ingredient. After the skillet cooled, people would scrape the drippings into jars and stash them away for everything: beans, biscuits, gravy, cornbread, even cooked vegetables. It was smoky, salty, and rich, and it turned even plain cabbage or boiled potatoes into something comforting. If you were lucky enough to have some cracklings left in the mix, all the better. Bacon itself was a luxury, but the grease stretched that flavor over a dozen meals. Nothing went to waste, not even the fat in the pan. Families would pass these jars down week to week like heirlooms, and it was not uncommon for a mother to teach her child exactly when the grease was good and when it had gone off. It kept things edible, and in a lot of homes it kept the whole meal together. It is not just a trick. It was a survival tactic that added flavor when seasoning was a distant dream. A spoonful of bacon grease could mean the difference between bland and bearable. Flour and salt meat stretchers were not about taste. They were about survival and smart thinking. When a pound of meat had to feed 6 or 7 people, there was no room for waste. Home cooks would mix the meat with a cup or 2 of flour, sometimes seasoned with pepper or dried herbs, and add a heavy pinch of salt. That mixture got turned into patties, crumbles, or meatballs. The flour made it stick together, and the salt helped pull out the flavor from the scraps of beef or pork. Sometimes an egg was added, sometimes not. Fried in a pan or baked in a loaf tin, it held its shape and filled the plate. Kids did not ask what was in it. They were just glad to have a warm dinner with something meaty at the center. These stretchers kept food on the table long after the groceries had run out. You will not find this trick in today's glossy cookbooks. Nobody wants to admit that flour can make meat go twice as far, but ask anyone who lived through the hard years, and they will tell you it was a trick worth knowing. Roasting a whole onion used to be a meal in itself, simple, hearty, and full of slow-cooked comfort. You did not need olive oil or a rack of spices. Just toss an unpeeled onion into the oven or tuck it into the coals of a fire and wait. Slowly, the inside softened, caramelized, and turned sweet, while the outer skin blackened and protected the flavor. Peel it at the table, sprinkle on salt or butter if you had it, and eat it straight from the foil or plate. For families with barely a potato left, this was a warm, filling side that required nothing but time. Onions were cheap, stored well, and brought out a kind of earthy richness when roasted whole. They could anchor a meal or stretch a small portion of meat. Today, most people roast vegetables in glossy pans with elaborate glazes, but this was bare-bones cooking, and it worked. Grocery stores rarely mention how much flavor lives in the simplest things when left alone. Roasting onions this way was a kind of quiet ritual, one that filled kitchens with warmth and made even a root vegetable feel like something special. You knew it was dinner time in the 1970s when you saw hot dogs sticking out of mashed potatoes like they owned the place. Hot dog crown casserole was loud, fun, and made almost entirely of leftovers. Mashed potatoes formed the base, with a mix of canned vegetables hidden underneath. Then came the crown, sliced hot dogs arranged in a circle like spokes on a wheel, ready to be browned under the broiler. It was part casserole, part sculpture, and it was kid-approved before that was even a marketing term. You might laugh now, but this was dinner theater back then. It used what was on hand, cost next to nothing, and gave kids a reason to actually eat vegetables. You could even find the recipe printed in the Kids Can Cook section of Betty's cookbooks. And while modern food blogs might call it kitschy, people back then called it Tuesday. It was filling, it was silly, and it got the job done. It's not just cloth napkins and towels. Cloth nappies help a lot too. They're a lot better for saving than disposable ones, and they actually do work just as well. Is that really what you want to be spending extra on? Extra expensive diapers? You really don't need to be doing that. Hey, saving is all about cutting the corners that need trimming, and you got to get used to that. This is especially true for families who are just starting out and can't seem to find a comfortable routine or rhythm with their finances just yet. Molasses milk was poor man's cocoa, and for many families it was the closest thing to a sweet treat they could manage. All it took was a splash of hot milk, sometimes powdered, sometimes fresh, and a spoonful of molasses stirred in. The result was dark, rich, and full of iron, with a strong flavor that kids either loved or learned to tolerate. It had warmth, it had sweetness, and it came with none of the cost of chocolate, which had all but vanished from most households during the 1930s. Molasses was one of the most common sweeteners at the time because it was cheaper than sugar and had a longer shelf life. It also felt hearty, like something that was doing your body good, even if the cupboard was nearly empty. Some families drank this before bed. Others served it in place of breakfast. It was a quiet comfort, often ladled out in chipped mugs, handed off with a tired smile and a reminder to sip slowly. Molasses milk might not sound glamorous today, but back then, it tasted like safety. And that was worth more than anything else. When milk was just past its prime and starting to sour, you did not throw it away. You turned it into cheese. Cottage cheese, farmer's cheese, or a soft spreadable mix. Each version had its own place at the table. The process was simple. Warm the milk, stir in a little vinegar or lemon juice, and let it curdle. Then drain the curds through a cloth and press lightly until they held their shape. What you were left with was something creamy, tangy, and surprisingly filling. You could spread it on toast, mix it with herbs, or even add it to casseroles and fillings. For people without regular access to store-bought cheese, this was a revelation. It let families create something nourishing and rich from milk that would otherwise go bad. That is the kind of alchemy supermarkets have no interest in reminding you of. After all, if you knew how to make your own cheese, You might skip the dairy aisle altogether. And that quiet independence, the ability to make do with what you had, is exactly the kind of power that deserves to come back. Pear and lime jello salad was a cafeteria classic with a side of confusion. Lime gelatin held canned pear halves in place like emerald jelly on glass. Right in the center of each pear, you dropped a dollop of mayonnaise or cream cheese. Then you chilled it, unmolded it, and served it cold with a sprig of parsley for elegance. This was not dessert. It was salad. Mid-century homes and schools called it refreshing. Some said it was sweet, others said it was savory. But no one ever forgot it. It was one of the most photographed dishes in old Betty Crocker cookbooks, bright, tidy, and full of mid-century confidence. It showed up at church luncheons and Sunday dinners, sitting proudly between the ham and the green beans. These days it sounds odd, but back then, it was the future. And sometimes you just had to go with it. Tell us your favorite old-time recipe below, like the video if it brought back memories, and subscribe for more nostalgic treats.